Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Wailing Hour. Sorry if there was a little brief jitter of stream with no sound. Our internet remains questionable. It always seems to be Mondays that are the worst, which is very convenient. Okay. Let's see. Where's the book? Here we go. Um, I'd originally thought we might do 8 chapters tonight, but I think or today. But I think we're gonna stick with 6 because I have a tech this evening. So we'll see how far we go. But it might be a little short tonight because again, there's not very much of the book left to go. But let us dive in. Here we go. Chapter 112, The Blacksmith. Availing himself of the mild, summer-cool weather that now reigned in these latitudes, and in preparation for the peculiarly active pursuit shortly to be anticipated, Perth, the begrimed, blistered old blacksmith, had not removed his portable forge to the hold again after concluding his contributory work for Ahab's leg, but to ring bolts by the foremast. Being now almost incessantly invoked by the headsmen and harpooneers and bowsmen to do some little job for them, altering or repairing or new shaping their various weapons and boat furniture, often he would be surrounded by an eager circle, all waiting to be served. Holding boat spades, pike heads, harpoons, and lances, and jealously watching his every sooty movement as he toiled, nevertheless this old man's was a patient hammer wielded by a patient arm. No murmur, no impatience, no petulance did come from him, silent, slow, and solemn, bowing over still further his chronically broken back as he toiled away, as if toil were life itself, and the heavy beating of his hammer the heavy beating of his heart. And so it was. Most miserable. A peculiar walk in this old man, a certain slight but painful appearing yawing in his gait, at an early period of the voyage excited the curiosity of the mariners, and to the importunity of their persistent questionings he had finally given in, and so it came to pass that everyone now knew the shameful story of his wretched fate. Belated, and not innocently, one bitter winter's midnight on the road running between two country towns, the blacksmith half stupidly felt the deadly numbness stealing over him, and sought refuge in a leaning, dilapidated barn. The issue was the loss of the extremities of both feet. Out of this revelation, part by part, at last came out the 4 acts of the gladness, and the one long and as yet uncatastrophed 5th act of the grief of his life's drama. He was an old man who, at the age of nearly 60, had postponedly encountered that thing in sorrow's technicals called ruin. He had been an artisan of famed excellence, and with plenty to do, owned a house and garden, embraced a youthful, daughter-like, loving wife, and 3 blithe, ruddy children. Every Sunday went to a cheerful-looking church planted in a grove. But one night, under cover of darkness, and further concealed in a most cunning disguisement, a desperate burglar slid into his happy home, and robbed them all of everything. And darker yet to tell, the blacksmith himself did ignorantly conduct this burglar into his family's heart. It was the bottle conjurer. Upon the opening of that fatal cork, forth flew the fiend, and shriveled up his home. Now, for prudent, most wise and economic reasons, the blacksmith's shop was in the basement of his dwelling, but with a separate entrance to it, so that always had the young and loving, healthy wife listened with no unhappy nervousness, but with vigorous pleasure to the stout ringing of her young-armed old husband's hammer, whose reverberations, muffled by passing through the floors and walls, came up to her not unsweetly in her nursery, and so to stout labor's iron lullaby the blacksmith's infants were rocked to slumber. O woe on woe! O death, why canst thou not sometimes be timely? Hadst thou taken this old blacksmith to thyself ere his full ruin came upon him, then had the young widow had a delicious grief, and her orphans a truly venerable legendary sire to dream of in their after years, and all of them a care-killing competency. But death plucked down some virtuous elder brother, on whose whistling daily toil solely hung the responsibilities of some other family, and left the worse than useless old man standing till the hideous rot of life should make him easier to harvest. Why tell the whole? The blows of the basement hammer every day grew more and more between, and each blow every day grew fainter than the last. The wife sat frozen at the window with tearless eyes glitteringly gazing into the weeping faces of her children. The bellows fell, the forge choked up with cinders, the house was sold, the mother dived down into the long churchyard grass, her children twice followed her thither, and the houseless, familyless old man staggered off a vagabond in a crape. His every woe unreverenced, his gray head a scorn to flaxen curls. Death seems the only desirable sequel for a career like this. But death is only a launching into the region of the strange untried. It is but the first salutation to the possibilities of the immense remote, the wild, the watery, the unshored. Therefore, to the death-longing eyes of such men, who still have left in them some interior compunctions against suicide, does the all-contributed and all-receptive ocean alluringly spread forth his whole plain of unimaginable taking terrors and wonderful new-life adventures, and from the hearts of infinite Pacifics the thousand mermaids sing to them, "Come hither, broken-hearted. Here is another life without the guilt of intermediate death. Here are wonders supernatural without dying for them. Come hither, bury thyself in life, thy gravestone too within the churchyard, and come hither till we marry thee." Hearkening to these voices east and west, by early sunrise and by fall of eve, the blacksmith's soul responded, "Aye, I come." And so Perth went a-whaling. Chapter 113, The Forge. With matted beard and swathed in a bristling sharkskin apron, about midday Perth was standing between his forge and anvil, the latter plywood log, with one hand holding a pike head in the coals, and with the other at his forge's lungs, when Captain Ahab came along, carrying in his hand a small rusty-looking leathern bag. While yet a little distance from the forge, moody Ahab paused, till at last Perth, withdrawing his iron from the fire, began hammering it upon the anvil, the red mass sending off the sparks in thick hovering flights, some of which flew close to Ahab. "Are these thy mother Carey's chickens, Perth? They are always flying in thy wake, birds of good omen too, but not all. Look here, they burn, but thou livest among them without a scorch." "Because I am scorched all over, Captain Ahab," answered Perth, resting for a moment on his hammer. "I am past scorching. Not easily canst thou scorch a scar." Well, well, no more. Thy shrunk voice sounds too calmly, sanely woeful to me. In no paradise myself, I am impatient of all misery in others that is not mad. Thou shouldst go mad, Blacksmith. Say, why dost thou not go mad? How canst thou endure without being mad? Do the heavens yet hate thee, that thou canst not go mad? What wert thou making there? Welding an old pike-head, sir. There were seams and dents in it. And canst thou make it all smooth again, Blacksmith, after such hard usage as it had? I think so, sir. And I suppose thou canst smooth almost any seams and dents, never mind how hard the metal, Blacksmith? Aye, sir. I think I can. All seams and dents but one. Look ye here, then, cried Ahab, passionately advancing and leaning with both hands on Perth's shoulders. Look ye here. Here. Can ye smooth out a seam like this, Blacksmith? Sweeping one hand across his ribbed brow. If thou couldst, Blacksmith, glad enough would I lay my head upon thy anvil, and feel thy heaviest hammer between my eyes. Answer. Canst thou smooth this seam? Oh, that is the one, sir. Said I not all seams and dents but one? Aye, Blacksmith. It is the one. Aye, man. It is unsmoothable. For though thou only seest it here in my flesh, it has worked down into the bone of my skull. That wrinkles. But away with child's play. No more gaffs and pikes today. Look ye here, jingling the leathern bag as if it were full of gold coins. I, too, want a harpoon made. One that 1,000 yoke of fiends could not part, Perth. Something that will stick in a whale like his own fin bone. That's the stuff. Flinging the pouch upon. Horseshoe stub, sir. Why, Captain Ahab, thou hast here, then, the best and stubbornest stuff we blacksmiths ever work. I know it, man. These stubs will weld together like glue from the melted bones of murderers. Quick, forge me the harpoon, and forge me first 12 rods for its shank, then wind and twist and hammer these 12 together like the yarns and strands of a tow line. Quick, I'll blow the fire. When at last the 12 rods were made, Ahab tried them, one by spiraling them with his own hand round a long, heavy iron bolt. A flaw! Rejecting the last one. Work that over again, Perth. This done, Perth was about to begin welding the 12 into one when Ahab stayed his hand and said he would weld his own iron. And then, with regular gasping hems, he hammered on the anvil, Perth passing to him the glowing rods, one as intense straight flame. The Parsee passed silently, and bowing his head towards the fire seemed invoking some curse or some blessing on the toil. But as Ahab looked up, he slid aside. "What's that bunch of lucifers dodging about there for?" muttered Stubb, looking on from the forecastle. "That Parsee smells like fire. That Parsee smells fire like a fusee, and smells of it himself, like a hot musket's powder pan." At last the shank, in one complete rod, received its final heat, and as Perth, to temper it, plunged it all hissing into the cask of water nearby, the scalding steam shot up into Ahab's bent face. "Wouldst thou brand me, Perth?" Wincing for a moment with the pain. "Have I been but forging my own branding iron, then?" "Pray God, not that. Yet I fear something, Captain Ahab. Is not this harpoon for the white whale?" "For the white fiend. But now, for the barbs, thou must make them thyself, man. Here are my razors, the best of steel here, and make the barbs sharp as the needle sleet of the icy sea." For a moment the old blacksmith eyed the razors as though he would fain not use them. "Take them, man. I have no need for them, for I now neither shave, sup, nor pray till— But here, to work!" Fashioned at last into an arrowy shape, and welded by Perth to the shank, the steel soon pointed the end of the iron, and, as the blacksmith was about giving the barbs their final heat, prior to tempering them, he cried to Ahab to place the water cask near. No water for that. I want it of the true death temper. Ahoy there! Testigo, Queequeg, Daggoo, what say ye, pagans? Will ye give me as much blood as will cover this barb?" Holding it up high, a cluster of dark nods replied, "Yes." 3 punctures were made in the heathen flesh, and the white whale's barbs were then tempered. "Ego non baptizo te in nomine Patris, sed in nomine Diaboli!" deliriously howled Ahab, as the malignant iron scorchingly devoured the baptismal blood. Now, mustering the spare poles from below and selecting one of hickory with the bark still investing it, Ahab fitted the end to the socket of the iron. A coil of new tow line was then unwound, and some fathoms of it taken to the windlass, and stretched to a great tension. Pressing his foot upon it till the rope hummed like a harp string, then eagerly bending over it and seeing no strandings, Ahab exclaimed, "Good! And now for the seizings." At one extremity the rope was unstranded, and the separate spread yarns were all braided and woven round the socket of the harpoon. The pole was then driven hard up into the socket, and the rope was traced halfway along the pole's length, and firmly secured so, with the intertwistings of twine. This done, pole, iron, and rope, like the 3 fates, remained inseparable, and Ahab moodily stalked away with the weapon, the sound of his ivory leg and the sound of the hickory pole both hollowly ringing along every plank. But ere he entered his cabin, a light, unnatural, half-bantering yet most piteous sound was heard. "Oh, Pip, thy wretched laugh, thy idle but unresting eye, all thy strange mummeries not unmeaningly blending with the black tragedy of the melancholy ship, and mocked it." Chapter 114. The Gilder. Penetrating further and further into the heart of the Japanese cruising ground, the Pequod was soon all astir in the fishery. Often in mild, pleasant weather, for 12, 15, 18, and 20 hours on the stretch, they were engaged in the boats steadily pulling or sailing or paddling after the whales, or for an interlude of 60 or 70 minutes calmly awaiting their uprising, though with but small success for their pains. At such times, under an abated sun, afloat all day upon smooth, slow-heaving swells, seated in his boat, light as a birch canoe, and so sociably mixing with the soft waves themselves that, like hearthstone cats, they purr against the gunwale. These are the times of dreamy quietude, when beholding the tranquil beauty and brilliancy of the ocean's skin, one forgets the tiger heart that pants beneath it, and would not willingly remember that this velvet paw but conceals a remorseless fang. These are the times when, in his whaleboat, the rover softly feels a certain filial, confident, land-like feeling towards the sea, that he regards it as so much flowery earth, and the distant ship revealing only the tops of her masts seems struggling forward, not through high rolling waves, but through the tall grass of a rolling prairie. As when the western emigrants' horses only show their erected ears, while their hidden bodies widely wade through the amazing verdure. The long-drawn virgin vales, the mild blue hillsides, as over these there steals the hush, the hum, you almost swear that play-weary children lie sleeping in these solitudes, in some glad Maytime when the flowers of the woods are plucked, and all this mixes with your most mystic mood, so that fact and fancy, halfway meeting, interpenetrate and form one seamless whole. Nor did such soothing scenes, however temporary, fail of at least as temporary an effect on Ahab. But if these secret golden keys did seem to open in him his own secret golden treasuries, yet did his breath upon them prove but tarnishing. O grassy glades, O ever vernal endless landscapes, and the soul in ye, though long parched by the dead drought of the earthy life, in ye men yet may roll, like young horses in new morning clover, and for some few fleeting moments feel the cool dew of the life immortal on them. Would to God these blessed calms would last, but the mingling threads of life are woven by warp and woof, calms crossed by storms, a storm for every calm. There is no steady, unretracing progress in this life. We do not advance through ficked gradations, and at the last one pause, through infancy's unconscious spell, boyhood's thoughtless faith, adolescence doubt, the common doom, then skepticism, then disbelief, resting at last in manhood's pondering repose of if. But once gone through, we trace the round again, and are infants, boys, and then, and ifs, eternally. Where lies the final harbor, whence we unmoor no more? In what rapt ether sails the world of which the weariest will never weary? Where is the foundling's father hidden? Our souls are like those orphans whose unwedded mothers die in bearing them. The secret of our paternity lies in their grave, and we must there to learn it. And that same day, too, gazing far down from his boat side into that same golden sea, Starbuck lowly murmured, "Loveliness unfathomable, as ever lover saw in his young bride's eye, tell me not of thy teeth-tiered sharks and thy kidnapping cannibal ways. Let faith oust fact, let fancy oust memory. I look deep down and do believe." And Stubb, fish-like, with sparkling scales, leapt up in that same golden light. "I am Stubb, and Stubb has his history, but here Stubb takes oaths that he has always been jolly." Chapter 115. The Pequod Meets the Bachelor. And jolly enough were the sights and the sounds that came bearing down before the wind some few weeks after Ahab's harpoon had been welded. It was a Nantucket ship, the Bachelor. which had just wedged in her last cask of oil and bolted down her bursting hatches, and now, in glad holiday apparel, was joyously, though somewhat vaingloriously, sailing around among the widely separated ships on the ground, previous to pointing her prow for home. The 3 men at her masthead wore long streamers of narrow red bunting at their hats. From the stern, a whaleboat was suspended bottom up, and hanging captive from the bowsprit was seen the long lower jaw of the last whale they had slain. Signals, ensigns, and jacks of all colors were flying from her rigging on every side. Sideways, lashed in each of her 3 basketed tops, were 2 barrels of sperm, above which, in her topmast crosstrees, you saw slender breakers of the same precious fluid, and nailed to her main trunk was a brazen lamp. As was afterwards learned, the Bachelor had met with the most surprising success, all the more wonderful for that while cruising in the same had gone entire months without securing a single fish. Not only had barrels of beef and bread been given way to make room for the far more valuable sperm, but additional supplemental casks had been bartered for from the ships she had met. And these were stowed along the deck and in the captain's and officers' staterooms. Even the cabin table itself had been knocked into kindling wood, and the cabin mess dined off the broad head of an oil butt, lashed down to the floor for a centerpiece. In the forecastle, the sailors had actually caulked and pitched their chests and filled them. It was humorously added that the cook had clapped a head on his largest boiler and filled it, that the steward had plugged his spare coffee pot and filled it, that the harpooneers had headed the sockets off their irons and filled them, that indeed everything was filled with sperm, except the captain's pantaloons pockets, and those he reserved to thrust his hands into in self-complacent testimony of his entire satisfaction. As this glad ship of good luck bore down upon the moody Pequod, the barbarian sound of enormous drums came from her forecastle, and drawing still nearer, a crowd of her men were seen standing round her huge trypots, which, covered with the parchment like poke or stomach skin of the black fish, gave forth a loud roar to every stroke of the clenched hands of the crew. On the quarterdeck, the mates and harpooneers were dancing with the olive-hued girls who had eloped with them from the Polynesian Isles, while suspended in an ornamented boat, firmly secured aloft between the foremast and mainmast, 3 Long Island Negroes with glittering fiddle bows of whale ivory were presiding over the hilarious jig. Meanwhile, others of the ship's company were tumultuously busy at the masonry of the try-works, from which the huge pots had been removed. You would have almost thought that they were pulling down the cursed Bastille, such wild cries they raised, as the now useless brick and mortar were being hurled into the sea. Lord and master over all this scene, the captain stood erect on the ship's elevated quarterdeck, so that the whole rejoicing drama was full before him, and seemed merely contrived for his own individual diversion. And Ahab, he too was standing on his quarterdeck, shaggy and black, with a stubborn gloom, and as the 2 ships crossed each other's wakes, one all jubilations for all things past, the other all forebodings as to things to come. Their 2 captains in themselves impersonated the whole striking contrast of the scene. "Come aboard! Come aboard!" cried the gay bachelor's commander, lifting a glass and a bottle in the air. "Hast seen the white whale?" gritted Ahab in reply. "No, only heard of him, but don't believe in him at all," said the other good-humoredly. "Come aboard." "Thou art too damned jolly. Sail on. Has lost any men?" "Not enough to speak of. 2 islanders, that's all. But come aboard, old hearty. Come along. I'll soon take that black from your brow. Come along, will ye? Merry's the play. A full ship, and homeward bound." "How wondrous familiar's a fool," muttered Ahab. Then aloud, "Thou art a ship, a full ship, and homeward bound, thou sayest. Well then, call me an empty ship and outward bound. So go thy ways, and I will mine. Forward there. Set all sail, and keep her to the wind." And thus, while the one ship went cheerily before the breeze, the other stubbornly fought against it, and so the 2 vessels parted, the crew of the Pequod looking with grave, lingering glances towards the receding Bachelor, but the Bachelor's men never heeding their gaze for the lively revelry they were in. And, as Ahab, leaning over the taffrail, eyed the homeward-bound craft, he took from his pocket a small vial of sand, and then, looking from the ship to the vial, seemed thereby bringing 2 remote associations together, for that vial was filled with Nantucket soundings. Chapter 116. The Dying Whale. Not seldom in this life, when on the right side fortune's favorites sail close by us, we, though all adroot before, catch somewhat of the rushing breeze and joyfully feel our bagging sails fill out. So it seemed with the Pequod. For next day, after encountering the gay Bachelor, whales were seen and 4 were slain, and one of them by Ahab. It was far down the afternoon, and when all the spearings of the crimson fight were done, and floating in the lovely sunset sea and sky, sun and whale both stilly died together, then such a sweetness and such plaintiveness, such enwreathing orisons curled up in that rosy air, that it almost seemed as if far over from the deep green convent valleys of the Manila Isles, the Spanish land breeze, wantonly turned sailor, had gone to sea, freighted with those vesper hymns. Soon again, but only soothed to deeper gloom, Ahab, who had sterned off from the whale, sat intently watching his final wanings from the now tranquil boat. For that strange spectacle observable in all sperm whales dying, the turning sunwards of the head and so expiring, that strange spectacle, beheld of such a placid evening, somehow to Ahab conveyed a wondrousness unknown before. He turns, and turns him to it, how slowly, but how steadfastly. His homage rendering and invoking brow, with his last dying motions, he too worships fire. Most faithful broad baronial vassal of the sun, oh, that these 2 favoring eyes should see these 2 favoring sights. Look, here, far waterlocked, beyond all hum of human weal or woe, in these most candid and impartial seas, where to traditions no rocks furnish tablets, where for long Chinese ages the billows have still rolled on speechless and unspoken to, as stars that sign upon the Niger's unknown source, here too life dies sunwards, full of faith, but see, no sooner dead than death whirls round the corpse, and it heads some other way. Oh, thou dark Hindu half of nature, who of drowned bones hast builded thy separate throne somewhere in the heart of these unverdured seas, thou art an infidel, thou queen, and too truly speakest to me in the wide slaughtering typhoon and the hushed burial of its after calm. Nor has this thy whale sunwards turned his dying head and then gone round again without a lesson to me. O trebly hoped and welded hip of power, O high aspiring rainbow jet, that one striveth, this one jetteth, all in vain, O whale. Dost thou seek intercedings with yon quickening sun that only calls forth life, but gives it not again? Yet dost thou, darker half, rock me with a prouder, if a darker faith. All thy unnameable imminglings float beneath me here. I am buoyed by breaths of once living things, exhaled as air, but water now. Then hail, forever hail! O sea, in whose eternal tossings the wild fowl finds his only rest, born of earth, yet suckled by the sea. Though hill and valley mothered me, ye billows are my foster brothers. Chapter 117. The Whale Watch. The 4 whales slain that evening had died wide apart, one far to windward, one less distant to leeward, one ahead, one astern. These last 3 were brought alongside ere nightfall, but the windward one could not be reached till morning, and the boat that had killed it lay by its side all night, and that boat was Ahab's. The wave pole was thrust upright into the dead whale's spout hole, and the lantern hanging from its top cast a troubled, flickering glare upon the black, glossy back, and far out upon the midnight waves, which gently chafed the whale's broad flank, like soft surf upon a beach. Ahab and all his boat's crew seemed asleep, but the Parsee, who, crouching in the bow, sat watching the sharks that spectrally played round the whale, and tapped the light cedar planks with their tails, a sound like the moaning in squadrons over asphaltites of unforgiving ghosts of Gomorrah, ran shuddering through the air. Starting from his slumbers, Ahab face to face saw the Parsee, and hooped round by the gloom of the night, they seemed the last men in a flooded world. "I have dreamed it again," said he. of the hearses. Have I not said, old man, that neither hearse nor coffin can be thine? And who are hearse that die on the sea? But I said, old man, that ere thou couldst die on this voyage, 2 hearses must verily be seen by thee on the sea, the first not made by mortal hands, and the visible wood of the last one must be grown in America. Aye, a strange sight that, Parsi, a hearse and its plumes floating over the ocean with the waves for the pallbearers. Ha! Such a sight we shall not soon see. Believe it or not, thou canst not die till it be seen, old man. And what was that saying about thyself? Though it come to the last, I shall still go before thee, thy pilot. And when thou art so gone before, if that ever befall, then ere I can follow, thou must still appear to me to pilot me still. Was it not so? Well then, did I believe all ye say, O my pilot, I have here 2 pledges that I shall yet slay Moby Dick and survive it. Take another pledge, old man, said the Parsee, as his eyes lighted up like fireflies in the gloom. Hemp only can kill thee. The gallows, ye mean? I am immortal, then, on land and on sea, cried Ahab with a laugh of derision. Immortal on land and on sea. Both were silent again, as one man. The gray dawn came on, and the slumbering crew arose from the boat's bottom, and ere noon the dead whale was brought to the ship. All right, that's 6 chapters for today. Only half an hour. The chapters definitely get shorter as the book rumbles towards its conclusion. You can see there, once again, the check of how much we have left. But as I said, I have a tech I have to get to tonight, so I'm going to end things a little early. Thanks for tuning in this week once again, and we'll see you next week. I think only 3 installments to go ere we finish this book. All right. Thanks for